So please welcome the panelists. They are sitting somewhere in the front row. We have Mark, Sergey, and Charles. All right, take a seat. Thanks, gentlemen, for coming over. I think that we have a panel here together that actually does not need the 5-minute mandatory panel introduction per person. But what I would like to do instead, because I presume that the crowd is widely known with the brands that they represent and lead. But what I would like to know from you guys instead actually is what keeps you and your company most busy today? And maybe that shares something about your strategy and vision and what you do as well.
What keeps us busy is definitely security. So it's the main challenge that we have. It's a big challenge that we have in the industry, and this is the challenge that we are trying to solve at Ledger. And we are providing providing to the users with the tools to secure their crypto, because self-custody is something very important when it comes to crypto, and we are providing our users with security.
Sergey.
So hi everyone. First of all, I would like to say it's really a beautiful movie. It's really nice, and it's not AI. It's also very nice to see it. So what we do at 1inch is we try to unite the whole decentralized finance again, because we started first on the Ethereum blockchain, and we see now a lot of different blockchains out there, and the liquidity became very fragmented. And we are building on protocols what unite the whole liquidity and introduce very user-friendly way to exchange assets, also cross-chain nowadays, and working very hard to support more and more blockchains.
All right, and Mark?
Yeah, so for me, I'm going to go back to this point on security, because I think it actually is something that should underlie everything in our industry. So we build scaling solutions, right? And most people think of that as build a great UX or build with it, but bottom line, baseline, it's security across the board. And so we think of scaling Web3, and if you're going to scale Web3 to the size of the internet, you need to scale it on the baseline of security. And I think that sometimes we take those shortcuts, especially in when it comes to protocols that we're building. I think that hardware wallets do a much better job of not cutting that corner. And so for me, it's ultimately we spend so much time on just making sure that everything that we ship is secure.
Mm-hmm. Security and consumer protection is ultimately very important. That's also one of the upsides what many people would perceive from increased regulation in Europe. But I would say that you, for example, with Polygon, you have many different types of clients that you cater to. You have many different people involved, larger enterprises, as well as the developers. So what would be your view on the move from wild west into the mild west, sorry?
Sorry, for the move from where?
So the move from the from the Wild West into the Mild West, increased regulation, consumer protection, but those also mandated by lawmakers and policymakers. How is that perceived from your stakeholders?
Yeah, I think a lot of stuff that's actually happened over the last, I'd say 5 years in crypto are things that have actually been driven by regulation, but that actually aren't good for the industry. So these are things that you see being done to be okay, well, this looks a certain way. So you'll see things that don't get disclosed because, well, if you do disclose it, then you've got a regulator that's calling you, right? Or you see kind of shortcuts being taken so that literally you can ship something faster because you know that a regulator is going to come knocking. A lot of shortcuts have been taken, and it's actually, oddly enough, based on this kind of protection that regulators were providing, which actually had the opposite effect. And I think the nice thing now is I can say that at Polygon, we speak even more openly than we did before about things in a way that's even more beneficial for users on the basis of we don't actually have to be worried about the same issues. And as you actually get regulations that develop, then it's a whole other ballgame where, when you look at Mika and you think of the disclosures that are associated with a token, for example, these are actually just net beneficial things and are things that people did not want to do before, even though it was thought to actually protect users from a regulator's perspective is literally harming them.
Mm-hmm. And then I'm also curious what you would say about users protecting themselves through self-custody solutions, for example, versus consumer protection laws. What is your vision on that? How would you balance that?
So going back to the regulation part, like I think what the market doesn't like is the lack of clarity when it comes to regulation. I think the market prefers a bad regulation than no regulation. And the good thing is that we are seeing more and more regulation that is in favor of crypto. And at Ledger, we are a technology provider. So at the end, there was not so much regulation on our side, but even the US has created some rules that says that self-custody is a right that must be protected. And at the end, this is the reason why we have created this permissionless system, so that as a user, you can really own your value, and there is no one that technically can prevent you to own your value. So this is something that is very powerful, but with this power comes a lot of responsibilities. So there was the question of securing your crypto, securing your private key, and this is where we are providing the users with the right tools to do so. But there is also a matter of education, because this new object that is crypto is very powerful, has plenty of possibilities. However, it's a new paradigm. So for users, it can be a little bit disturbing, because it's difficult to apprehend, it's difficult to understand how it works. So that's why I think education is something very important for users. Also, improving the user experience in order to make things as easy as possible to understand. Those are part of the challenge that we have.
And what you also see is an increasing requirement with travel rule compliance for centralized exchanges, which is still a big part of the flow going into Ledger wallets, I would presume. Would you see that this is, in a way, integrating vendors that monitor travel rule compliance? Would that be an opportunity for you, or is that a bottleneck for growth or usability? How do you see that?
For now, there is no such regulation that would force the travel rule for at least for retail. We also have a B2B offering, and when it comes to B2B, such regulation or requirement can come from a compliance point of view, and we are supporting or working to support these flows. But for now, when it comes to retail, there is no such regulation, and we will see. Maybe in the version 2 of Mika, there might be such a regulation, but that could be a challenge in terms of user experience, because it could make things more cumbersome. And we'll see what the regulation will say in this area.
Mm-hmm. And then with 1inch as one of the leading DEX aggregators, how would you balance consumer protection and avoiding market abuse in a DeFi realm?
We take it very seriously. So we make sure that no sanctioned persons and hackers, North Koreans, persons, corporates can interact with us. So we work with a lot of security companies who are always monitoring the blockchain, looking for the hacks. So we try to ensure that no one of these actors can interact with us, and also we sell it as a software as a service to other customers as well. So it's very important that we start to do more compliant approach, more enterprise, high-grade approach already by ourselves. Regulators need time, also depending on from the country. Switzerland is more educated than maybe other countries. Some other countries are still thinking about how to regulate centralized exchanges, and this is one thing. What we do on our side, on at least at 1inch Labs side. The other thing is we try to build protocols that follow two rules. The protocol should operate in non-custody manner, so no one needs to trust the assets and deposit somewhere and hope that no one gamble with these funds. And the second rule is that it's atomic interaction. So it means when you exchange your assets, you will get your assets back if the exchange doesn't go through because of maybe price change that no one settled, or it goes through how the user was expecting it. So these two things we try to maintain, and it causes kind of implementation what are not more than 200 lines of code on a smart contract. It's really beautiful to see that something like that is possible. Best example is the cross-chain swaps. No one really implemented before. We did it in September last year, intent-based cross-chain swaps. We used the HTLC, hash-time lock contracts, what was invented already in 2013 for Bitcoin, actually. And the biggest problem was to find the price for the swap. Yeah? And through the intent-based approach, what we invented also in 2022, we found a solution in a combination of these two technologies. We now can offer easy cross-chain swaps and protect the user, because all the risks went to the market makers, arbiters, traders who are professional traders who know how to protect themselves. So we protect by architecture design from MEV. So people are not losing funds because someone monitored the transactions in the mempool and attack them and extract value out of them.
Mm-hmm. And what would be one of your North Star goals? Is it focused on activity that you have within 1 inch, or is it volume based or unique user based? What do you focus on?
So we are looking for the growth for sure. We started on Ethereum. We have now around 13 blockchains where we support cross-chain. Solana is coming this month. So we plan to expand to every blockchain what can be integrated based on our protocol design. And it's also Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin, XRP, Stellar. Everywhere where we can use escrow approach, HTLC, we would integrate because we have liquidity and we would have a global hub for best trading venue, I would say, like the global hub of liquidity where everyone can plug in. Of course, only those who are compliant and follow the world standard of who are not sanctioned.
Mm-hmm. And Mark, how would that be for Polygon? What is the North Star that you would have in terms of growth?
Yeah, so we have a few products at Polygon, and so I think it really depends on the product, but focusing on the one that people think about most, which is like Polygon POS as kind of our main chain. One of the things that people are not that aware of is this general philosophy that we have at Polygon that like general purpose chains will no longer remain general purpose chains. I think this is like abundantly obvious, but I don't think it's obvious to everyone, which is that if you build a general purpose chain, like that block space is commoditized. Like you could differentiate it with like being faster, being cheaper, whatever historically. That's no longer the case. Everything's virtually the same with small differences. And so once that becomes true, now you need to start building differentiated block space again so that it's more valuable. People are willing to pay for it again, it's less competitive. And so what that looks like is you start looking at certain verticals and you specifically start building block space, building tooling, building use cases that are actually good for that. And so on Polygon POS, this is something we're very focused on, is like on the payments and RWA side of things. And for us, when we look at that, it's like all about like velocity of stable coins moving. And ultimately, we want to see that velocity as high as possible. And one of the things that's like really interesting on a blockchain, and we see this on Polygon POS, is that like the dollars move a lot faster on chain than they move off chain. And like the multiples are, it's like literally multiples higher. And this, to me, is like an obvious reflection of like the power of a blockchain over like the current rails that we have. And so ultimately that is going to drive fees, which is something that we care about, and that's how we kind of end up looking at the value. And so all of our products end up being like very much about like solving a specific use and what's that metrics that matters most for that. And for payments, it really is that velocity of money.
Yes, payments and remittance have been one of the trending topics in the industry as well. A recent Blockworks report showed also that an average $200 cross-border transaction cost about 6% in fees. Right? That's unimaginable with stablecoins these days, and that could be a good reason to spark some retail adoption as well. But the ECB survey lately showed that only 9 or 8% of the European retail consumers holds any crypto now. So what's sort of holding people back from mass adoption? Do you have some insights or thoughts on that?
I think the mass adoption is already ongoing. Like if you have a look at the statistic in France, there are more people that hold crypto than people that hold stocks. So it's already telling a lot. I think we are like if you look the different cycles that we have, the adoption is becoming like bigger and bigger. The challenge that we could have in the past were about user experience, because at the beginning that was quite cumbersome, and you needed to understand everything. But now we did a lot of progress in the ecosystem to make the user experience like really easier, and even with a hardware wallet, when you start with a hardware wallet, it's really easy. You don't even have to go through a KYC or some complex things to have your own money, and it's permissionless money. You don't have to ask permission to anyone to hold it. So we had this kind of challenge in the past. We also had a challenge in terms of like how crypto was perceived by people in the world, but it's also changed drastically during this cycle. We also had a challenge when it comes to regulation, and now there's a challenge are fading away. So I think now the mass adoption is just inevitable, and it's just a matter of time that anyone is going to use crypto in a way or another, with self-custody, which is like a fundamental right, or sometimes maybe without even knowing it, because we are going to use like blockchain technology just because it's more efficient than everything that we already have when it comes to payment, when it comes to like trading stocks. It will happen on chain, obviously. So this is just inevitable, just a matter of time.
And how would you strategize within Ledger with the increasing demand for payments? Because cold storage, of course, is known for its great security, but the payment user flow might be a little bit complex. Is there a strategy behind it?
It really depends what you call payment. If you are like if when you say payment, you refer to like peer-to-peer payment and the kind of payment that we do with your credit card. In this kind of setup, you don't really need like a very high level of security. So your mobile phone is probably a good tool to spend 100 USD to buy whatever you want. But when it comes to like buying a house, when it comes to manage your wealth, then you will need like a high level of security, and Ledger technology will be for you. And we also have like a B2B offering, and on the B2B side, like a payment is something very different from what we see on the B2C side.
Mm-hmm. And then for the trading part, the increasing regulations, some people argue that it might limit some of the innovation that's happening. The others would say it enables institutional adoption, stabilizing prices. So exchanges, generally that have licenses, are able to tap into institutional liquidity as well. How would you, from one inch, strategically compete with exchanges being a DEX, where you see a DEX aggregator, where you see increasing regulation on exchanges? What is going to be the strategy to do you see that's a competition there, or does it complement each other? How do you see that?
So, from our point of view, you are the next generation. Yeah. So, yeah, centralized exchanges were built how they are built because you didn't have the technology before. So we are the next iteration of the technology. I compare us with the to early days of internet. So and institutionals, banks, the whole financial industry can continue work and use telephones if they want to continue to settle the trades in the manner what they do right now and stay isolated in every single exchange, or they can use the new internet, that's us, and be more efficient. What I fully agree what you said, to use more efficient technology, what cause better rates for the customers, more protection for the customer, more transparency for the regulators as well. So we have seen a lot of different kind of I would say scams. So Wirecard, for example, in Germany, a very painful topic for BaFin, and they are very strict also because of that, and I fully understand why. And based on our technology, it would be more transparent. Yeah, so much more transparent, and user would be like those people who invested in such a company would have more protection from our point of view. So yeah, in general, they need to adapt us I personally, I don't want to adapt myself, our technology on the traditional world. They need to adapt to us. We are the new internet. So if they don't want to use us, they can stay. They will stay behind and they will miss the train or the rocket.
And when it's on chain, you can benefit from the composability, which is a very, very interesting feature.
This is the power of DeFi, of decentralized finances. Web3 is about composability, about building new money Legos on top of our already existing money Legos. It's what actually we did back in 2019 on the competition project on the hackathon in New York City. We just built something on top of Uniswap, Kyber, and Banker network and built an aggregator. Nowadays, we are not just aggregator, we are marketplace, global liquidity hub.
All right, thank you. And as a closing question to each of you, what is, for this crowd of industry experts, a misconception that you see the experts even in this industry have about the industry or your company? Or is there a misconception that you would like to debunk here on stage? Would you?
Yeah, I somewhat touched on this a little bit earlier, but I think the general idea that we are ready to bring on like the world on chain, I actually don't think that we're ready for that. Like, we talk about this all the time internally at Polygon, that we have the goal of making Web3 feel like the internet. And right now, Web3 feels like DARPA plus whatever other networks existed at the time. And I think that we're ready for users to globally come on chain when every network together feels like one. And that's going to be the time when you can get somebody to come on and they bridge to XYZ chain and their friend tells them to buy an asset on another chain and they can just go buy the asset on the other chain. And they're not being walked through how to do it or asking ChatGPT what the steps are to get from chain A to chain B. That's like ultimately where we need to get for, I think, us to get to a point where users come on and they don't churn. My concern right now is, I actually think it's very true that we're like ready from an infrastructure perspective and a user experience perspective on the single chain to bring people on. And I think we're like very ready for that. We can create good experiences there. But what I fear is that those users are going to churn one by one. And the question is, how long does it take for them to like re-explore when they feel like limited in what they do? I also think that when they go to a chain right now that is a general purpose chain, they're not going to get the exact experience that they want. When I look at like the experiences that somebody like Immutable has built in gaming, like it's very different from what a general purpose chain has built. And so I kind of am a very big fan of like institutions coming in, hiding these weaknesses that currently exist in Web3, creating a great Web2 experience, bringing some users on board, but that like mass adoption is really actually a few years away when we can actually make Web3 feel like one internet.
Sergej, what is your favorite misconception in the industry?
Business?
What is your favorite misconception in the industry? Is there something that people tend to believe that you disagree with, that you would like to debunk? All right, then do you have any misconceptions that are your favorite?
Yeah, I have a few of them. Probably the one that is the most striking for me is that like most people think hacks happen to others only, and this is not the case. Like if you don't secure your keys, like in the secure enclave, like in the secure element, in a hardware wallet, at some point you will get wrecked. There is no doubt about that. If you are blindly signing a hash without understanding what you are signing, you are going to get wrecked at some point. This is another misconception, and this type of thing does not happen only to others. So that's why we are working on the clear sign all the things. Like this is an initiative that we are doing in the space to make sure that our users can understand what they sign. And if you don't understand what you sign, so you might think that you are signing the transaction you intended to, but maybe you are signing away your assets. This is something that you don't want. And we also have created a new feature that is a transaction check on device that gives you a security assessment for your transaction on device. So again, hacks don't happen only to others. That would be the misconception.
All right, thanks Charles, thanks Sergej and Mark for all your input. Give it up for the panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.